Thank you. Thank you, Brother Carl Boyd. I don't think anyone has mentioned how much our community appreciates you over your years of service, dedication to the education of our children, and the love of us as a people. So I'm giving you my personal thank you, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. I'm going to make a correction. Let me begin by first asking permission from an elder to speak.
Permission granted.
Thank you. As it is, try that again. As it is, in the lineage of our ancestry, of the people from whom we descend from, that extends far beyond the shores of America, we always pay homage by speaking of them first. Now, I'm going to be very brief. I'm honored to be here before you all, and I give my sincere appreciation and gratitude to all of the ministers, all of our elected officials. Queen Mother is here. All of those who helped to put this march together. The dream and the blessings of one Reverend Ralph Gordon Wright has come to fruition today. We thank you. We thank Pastor Vernon Howard for his energy and opening up his church to help us host and pull this together, and his work has been immense. And we appreciate everyone who helped to make this happen. But most importantly, we thank all of you for being here today. And we have seated before us up front those who have come today who was also at the original march, the march that took place 50 years ago today, and we honor and give you our thanks and our blessings as well. Now, I'm getting ready to disappoint some, but others who know me, I Have a Dream is a wonderful speech. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. It's more than wonderful. It was voted the most, help me now, the best speech of the 20th century as determined by speakers and speech aficionados in 1999. Before we entered this millennium, they reviewed all the speeches of the last millennium and determined I Have a Dream to be the speech of the century. Now, the correction, I'm not going to do that speech. Let me get that out now. Because we know it, we've heard it, we know of its importance. But what's important to me, and I hope it will be to everyone else, is to understand what Dr. King was saying to us the night before he met his demise. He left a very powerful message for the babies sitting down there on the blankets. For those who did not know him, he left a very important message. So I make it a point every time I get an opportunity to move his words forward so that we will know it today. Yes, he had a wonderful dream. But Dr. King, at the time of his demise, knew that to make the dream a reality, what was standing in the way was the economics. And he spoke to how poverty was afflicting us even worse than the lack of civil rights. And he was bold enough to cross that line from civil rights to start talking about the economics of our government. And there's no doubt in my mind that that's what caused his demise. So it's upon us to make sure that we understand what he was saying on April the 3rd, 1968. And he left the words to us, and I'm going to share some of Dr. King's words that night. Because that was a time when Dr. King knew that he was going to die. And any normal man would have sat down and been quiet like many others did. But Dr. King knew that for us as a people to move forward, he had to stand up and tell the truth. And if you research the speech he gave April the 4th, 1967 in New York City at the Riverside Church, you'll understand why. No coincidence. April the 4th, 1968, he met his demise. And I'm telling the babies here tonight, it was not James Earl Ray. If you say what you want about me, I don't care. Research it. It was not James Earl Ray that killed Dr. King. And we cannot move that lie forward either. But I'm going to come to you at this time with an excerpt. Is that better? No. Is that better? No. I don't need no mic.
There you go.
Words of Dr. King. An excerpt from when he was in Memphis, Tennessee, helping the sanitation workers acquire a decent wage to live on. Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on. In these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. Yes, we have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you tonight. You know, several years ago I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written. And while autographing books, a black woman came up and the only words I heard from her was, "You, Martin Luther King." And I was looking down writing and I said, "Yes." The next moment, I felt something beating on my chest. And before I knew it, I had been stabbed by that demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and that blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta. Now, that's your main artery. Once that's punctured, you're drowned in your own blood. That's the end of it. Well, 4 days later, they allowed me to, after the operation, after my chest had been opened up and the blade removed, they allowed me to move around in the wheelchair in the hospital. And from all over the states and all over the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but there was this one letter. And I looked at it and I'll never forget it. Now, I'd received a telegram from the president and the vice president. I'd forgotten what those telegrams said. I'd received a letter and a visit from the governor of New York. But I'd forgotten what that letter said. But there was this other letter, and I looked at it and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While it should not matter, I'd like to mention that I'm a white girl. And I read in the paper of your suffering and of your misfortune. And I read that if you had merely sneezed, you would have died." Then she said, "Well, sir, I'm writing you today to tell you that I'm so very happy that you didn't sneeze." Well, I too am happy that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream. And had taken this whole nation back to those deep wells of democracy that were dug deep by the founding fathers with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1961 when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation in interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when the Negroes of Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere. Because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1963 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation, brought into being the Civil Rights Act. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma to see the great movement there. No, I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze, but it really doesn't matter now. It really doesn't matter. As we got started on the plane from Atlanta this morning, there were 6 of us. The pilot said over the public address system, we're sorry for the delay. Well, we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane to be sure that all of the bags were searched. And to be sure that nothing would be wrong on the plane, we had to check out everything carefully. We had the plane protected and guarded all night. Then I got into Memphis. Some began to say or talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what's going to happen now. But it really doesn't matter with me now. Because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.